So they captivate on something that's really important, and that's data, and that's the relationship you've got with your audience. They're pre-qualified visitors, so it's just a no-brainer. Everyone should be using RLSAs. Now let's take a look at Google Analytics and RLSAs. As I said, the opportunities that Google Analytics brought to RLSAs have been fundamental. They've just changed everything so much. So gone are the days when you can only use RLSAs based on what pages people have viewed. You can now use them based on pretty much any of the data in your analytics account. So whether that's the date of the person's first session, how much they put in their shopping basket, the possibilities are absolutely endless. So why would you use the RLSA lists with analytics compared to AdWords? Well, obviously, it's nice and easy because you don't need to make any change to your code. If you use the AdWords code for remarketing, you have to put that additional piece on the site. The main difference, as I said, is the functionality. So how much more creative you can be with your lists compared to if you just use the AdWords code. But you can keep both bits of code on your site, so it's no problem if you were already using the AdWords RLSA code. You can keep that on there and just activate it within remarketing, within analytics as well. To do this is really simple. In the admin tab of Google Analytics, just toggle the little setting to say on, and that's it. Obviously, if you're using RLSAs on an app, it's slightly different, and I've put a link in here for you to go and work out how to do that. My slides will be available afterwards, so don't worry about kind of noting everything down. When you activate your Google Analytics RLSA code, remember to update your privacy policy. So this gets overlooked quite a lot, but essentially you just need to mention what cookies you're using, how you're using them, so to show targeted ads, the third parties that are going to be showing the ads for you, so whether that's DoubleClick or Google, and also give them an option to opt out. This is an example of a policy that I use. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, so check it out yourself, but just as an example, it might be useful. So now I'm going to move on to some tactics for using RLSAs with Google Analytics data. The first couple of examples I'll go through with step-by-step instructions on how to set them up, but hopefully after that point, those instructions will apply to all the other examples as well, so I won't go into detail on all of them. So a strategy that I've seen work really well is to increase your bids in search ads if the person searching is someone who's visited your site the optimum amount of times to make a purchase. So often you'll see when you look in your analytics data that users perhaps visit 5 times or more, or a certain amount of times before they make a conversion. So if that person's searching for the 6th time, you know that this is the point where they're quite likely to convert. So it's worth increasing your bids to get that person back to your site because you know that that click's hopefully going to end in a transaction. For example, KLM could look at their data, realize that people tend to visit 5 times or more, and then increase their bids the next time that person searches. To set this up, you'd start by analyzing your path length report in Google Analytics. This is under multi-channel funnels, and it basically shows you how many interactions people have with your site before they make a conversion. You then create the list in Google Analytics under the admin tab. You go to audiences and click the red create audience button, and then you link the AdWords account that you want this audience to be available in. This step's really important. If you've got multiple AdWords accounts that you're using, you can only create an audience and have it used within one AdWords account at the moment. So make sure you pick the right AdWords account that you want to associate it with. Otherwise, your list will collect data, but when you go to look in your AdWords account to apply it, the list won't be there. Okay, so next thing is to actually define the audience. So you'll see some predefined lists Google set up for you, but what you want to do is click Create New Audience. And here is where you define the conditions. So in this case, we're saying the person needs to have at least 5 sessions on the site, but have not completed a transaction. And it's really important to use the AND function here. So if you use OR, obviously it could mean those people meet just one of the criteria, so maybe they've just never converted. So by using the AND function, you make sure that the people on this remarketing list fit both the criteria that you've specified. The next thing you do is set your membership duration. Now this is something that I think it gets pre-populated automatically with 30 days, and a lot of people will just leave it at 30 days. But it's really good to have a think about your average path to purchase. How long do people normally take before they decide to buy from you? If it's a low consideration purchase, maybe it's just 7 days, but if it's a holiday or something a bit more involved, maybe it's kind of like 6 months, it could be even longer. With RLSAs, the maximum list duration is 180 days. So it's not like normal remarketing with Google when you get, I think it's like 500 and something days. So keep that in mind when you set this duration. Next thing you want to do is apply that remarketing list to your AdWords campaigns. So go to the Audiences tab in AdWords and hit Add Remarketing Audience. Here you choose whether you want the list to be bid only or target and bid. So as Ariane touched on this, and it's a really valuable lesson to make sure you get this right, because if you tick bid only, it's absolutely fine. Your ads will keep showing to your current audience, and you can set a bid adjustment for those who are on your remarketing list. But if you tick target and bid, your ads will only show to people on that remarketing list when they're searching. So make sure you don't accidentally tick target and bid, because everything will stop running. So the next stage is to set the bid adjustment. If you're looking for a more scientific approach of how to decide how to set that bid adjustment, then there's a really good article from Periscopics that I've put a link to there. What I tend to do is apply your audience list and don't set a bid adjustment to start with. Let it gather some data on your campaign and then look back and see how well that audience is converting. And from that point, you can then decide whether it's worth increasing or decreasing your bids. Another tactic, which again Ariane touched on and mentioned that Larry Kim talks a lot about this, is using Facebook ads to drive demand and to drive awareness, and then using RLSAs later on to drive those people back to your site. So in this example, you could use Facebook ads to drive awareness of something and then bid on broader keywords when that audience is searching in Google to bring them back to the site. So those are keywords you probably wouldn't normally bid on, but because you know the user's qualified, they've already visited your site and they've engaged with your Facebook ads, you're okay to bid on them. So an example here, Tony and Guy could run Facebook ads to drive awareness of inspiring people to get a new haircut or a new hairstyle. And they can then bid on more generic keywords, things like hairstyle ideas, which they probably normally wouldn't bid on, to drive people back to the site. So when you create your Facebook ads, remember to use UTM tagging. Here you can dictate exactly what you want your source, medium, and campaign name to be. It's important to remember what these are because you'll need them when you create your list. Here's an example, so maybe it's hair inspiration or something like that. You then create your AdWords campaign, which is going to have your generic keywords in that you wouldn't normally bid on. In this instance, it definitely should go in a new campaign. Don't just create a new ad group within an existing campaign. And the reason is that you don't want it to share the budget of your existing campaigns, because this is going to convert quite differently to how they convert. So you'll want to set different budgets. So here we've got these generic keywords that are going to reach people much further up the funnel that you wouldn't normally bid on. Then you create your ad text in that ad group, in that campaign. And think about it when you write this ad text. You're not talking to your normal customers who are actively searching and far down the funnel. You're talking to people who are still very much up here considering, haven't quite decided what they're going to do yet. So when you write the text, make sure it's not too salesy or too hard. It just needs to be enticing just to get people back. So then you apply the list to your campaign you've created. Again, previously, you could only do this at ad group level, which took forever because you had to apply it to all the different ad groups, which is where AdWords Editor saved a ton of time. But you can now apply them at campaign level, so either campaign or ad group level, whichever you prefer. And that's it for that one. So the next tactic I'm going to look at is using RLSAs with dynamic search ads. Who is using dynamic search ads at the moment? Okay, awesome. So you know that they're brilliant for kind of capturing all the products or services on your site that perhaps aren't already catered for within your existing standard search campaigns. And you can use RLSAs alongside them to kind of give them a bit more of a free rein, but make sure that the person who's clicking back to your site is qualified because they've already visited your site before or they're a regular customer. And that's what I'm going to talk about here. So, for example, Amazon might not show text ads for their entire product inventory, but if they know the person searching is a regular customer who purchases more often than average, then it's worth letting RLSAs run letting dynamic search ads run really broadly for this audience because that person's qualified. We know they're a regular customer. So you'd create this in the same way as before, under audiences, exactly the same process, but you just say transactions per user is more than 5, for example, or whatever you consider to be a high number of transactions for your average user. And obviously you need to set your list duration considering in what space of time you want the user to have had these transactions. So perhaps 5 transactions in 4 weeks makes them a regular customer to you, or perhaps it's 5 transactions in 10 days. It depends how specific you need to go. And this list you'd apply as target and bid because you're just adjusting your bids, target and bid, because you are actually minimizing who's going to see this and saying, I only want my RLSAs to run on my I only want my dynamic search ads to run on my entire product inventory if the person searching is on my remarketing list. Another option is to use smart lists. So is anyone using smart lists at the moment? Okay, cool. So they're a bit more popular in display. They're quite new to search. You can apply them to pretty much any campaign, shopping or search ads. They work best on e-commerce accounts. So if you don't have enough data, Google will create these lists based on your competitors or ad accounts it thinks are similar to yours. If that happens, the lists tend not to be very successful. So only really use these if you've got the required data. So that's 500 transactions per month and 10,000 daily page views. And it looks at so many different data points. So it will consider the location of the user, their browser, so many data points that if you manually created an RLSA list, you couldn't really consider all these things as effectively as Google does with these smart lists. They're all about capturing people who are likely to convert. So it's very different to similar audiences. It's not just about finding people who are similar to your customers. It's about Google looking at all the data and saying these people are likely to convert in your market. So an example of a retailer who might use smart lists could be H&M. They've probably got lots of conversion data, so it makes them an ideal target to use this kind of smart list because Google would have built up a really good idea of who their target customer is. It's a predefined list, so when you go to set it up in analytics, go create new lists, and you'll see it right there at the top. And you'd apply this as bid only, because all you want to do is adjust your bids if the person searching has previously been to your site. So another option, similar to the one I spoke about with Facebook, is to target people who visited your site via your email marketing when they're searching on AdWords using broader keywords. So, for example, the Body Shop could show bespoke ad text or bid on specific new keywords they wouldn't normally bid on if they know the person searching came to their site via their email marketing. And to set this list up, you'd literally just do it in the same way as I explained with the Facebook example. You've tagged the links in your email marketing so you know what the source, medium, campaign name is going to be, and create a list that contains all the traffic that came from there. And you'd apply this as target and bid to your new campaigns or your new ad groups because you want to specifically show them bespoke ad text. So you create that new campaign, create your bespoke ad text in there and your keywords, and then apply this list as target and bid to reach just that audience. You can increase bids on people who have clicked a promotional ad of yours but perhaps not yet converted. So because you've offered them a promotion, you know that they're probably quite likely to come back and convert at some stage. So it's worth paying that extra, getting them back to your site in order to get that transaction. For example, Boots had an ad with a specific promotional code in. If you click through to the site from this ad featuring this code, they could then increase their bids the next time you were searching because they know it's worth getting you back onto the site. You've been offered a good deal. Hopefully you're going to convert. To create this list, it's all about using the ad content. So you say my ad content contained and then whatever that word was. Obviously, this only applies for AdWords ads. It doesn't pick up ad content contained from Facebook or anything like that. So it needs to be traffic that's come via AdWords, via an ad with this specific code in. And this one you apply as bid only, because you're just adjusting your bids based on whether or not the person's clicked through from a promotional ad. If you find you get some users on your site who tend to spend more than average, it can be quite good to increase those bids the next time that person's searching, because again, you know, if you can get them to your site, their transaction value is usually much higher than the average person's. For example, IKEA might find that if they've got a segment of their audience they know tends to spend more than £500 in a single transaction or more than £1,000, then if that person's searching again, it could be worth increasing their bids to get them back to the site. To set up this list, you say revenue per session is more than 500, or whatever you consider to be a high average order value for your particular business. Obviously, if you're selling holidays, it's going to be a lot more than that. If you're selling shoes, it's going to be a lot less. And this, again, you would apply as a bid-only list. So you're just adjusting your bids if this person is on your remarketing list and they're searching. You can increase bids when the person searching is part of a similar audience. So again, Ariane touched on this briefly. I kind of share her experience in that sometimes it just doesn't work. I think Google are quite far off compared to Facebook when it comes to similar audiences. Similar audiences on Facebook can be really effective. On Google, it is touch and go. I'd say create the list and apply it to your campaigns, but hold off setting a bid adjustment until you know whether it does or doesn't convert well for you. So yeah, Google automatically create these lists for you. These are based not on finding people who are like your customers or going to convert, but they're based on people who are just similar. So statistically, Google will look at all the data points and find people who are similar. In this example, Hamer could use similar audiences of their existing customers as a bid adjustment on their existing campaigns. So to set this up, you would literally go to create your list in AdWords this time, and you'll need to flick over to the bit that says similar to remarketing list, so it won't be under your normal remarketing list part, and it's a predefined list. If you've got enough data, Google will automatically create it for you and it will be there. So apply it, see if it works for you before you make any bid adjustments. And again, because you're just adjusting your bids for this audience, it's bid only and you're applying it to your existing ad groups or campaigns. Another tactic is to upsell on products you wouldn't normally bid on. Sometimes there are products that you have that just aren't worth bidding on. Perhaps they've got a low profit margin or they just generally don't convert very well. But if you know that the person has recently bought something related from you, it could be worth bidding on those if that person's searching. For example, Pandora might not usually bid on jewellery boxes, but if they know the person's recently bought some jewellery from them, it could be quite a good idea to upsell to that person to get them to buy the jewellery box. So that person's much more likely to convert than just an average person who's searched for jewellery boxes without having previously purchased from them. To set this list up, you say transactions per user is more than one. If you want to be specific and say the type of item they've bought from you, so perhaps you sold lots of things, not just jewellery, and you wanted to say this person's bought something from my jewellery category, you can create a list that does that as well. So you can be as specific as you need to, depending on your business. And the list duration is important here, because obviously you want the person to have purchased the related thing from you quite recently, otherwise it loses its effect a little bit. And again, this list is a target and bid list. So you would create your new campaign with your new keywords in this case, jewellery box, with your new ad groups and your new ad text, and you'd apply this list to it as target and bid. So the people are only going to see these text ads or trigger these keywords if they've previously bought something from you that's related. Another tactic is to increase your bids if you know the person has bought something similar from you in the past. So it's a little bit similar to the previous example. But for example, ASOS could increase their bids if they know the person searching has bought something from them related to what they're searching for again. So if they've bought a sports brand, for example, from them in the past, they could create a list of all those people and apply that list to all their ad groups which are advertising sports brands that they sell, and increase the bids on those users because they've bought sports goods from them before, they're likely to do it again. To create this list, you say product or brand contains, and then in this example I've used Adidas and Nike, but it could be whatever you need it to be in your specific business. In this example as well, we're using or, so they could have bought any of these different brands from you before, and then you can apply it to your existing campaigns. And you set it as bid only because you're just adjusting your bids on those campaigns for similar products if the person has bought that from you in the past. Another option is to increase your bids if the person searching has completed a micro goal rather than a macro goal. So who's familiar with micro and macro goals? Okay, cool. So essentially, for anyone who's not, your micro goal is less important. It's not going to make you loads of money, but it's still an indication that your traffic is of good quality. And your macro goal is your main, really important thing. So in this example, ING might increase their bids for people who have used their mortgage calculator on their website. So that's their micro goal. Like, it's not really important, but it's still an indication that the user is really engaged. And then increase their bids if they've not actually made an appointment with their mortgage advisors. So the mortgage advisor appointment would be their macro goal, their main thing, but using the mortgage calculator is their kind of micro goal. So what you're saying is this person's done the thing that's okay, like it shows they're interested in what we're selling, but they haven't done the main action yet. So we want to increase our bids for them, so when they come back to the site, they're more likely to actually see our PPC ad and come back. To create this, you basically say they've completed at least one of your macro goals and one of your micro goals and none of your macro goals. And this is a bid-only list you're applying to your existing ad groups. You're just increasing your bids if that person has done your micro goal but not your macro goal. Okay, so now I'll move on to a couple of tips that I found useful when I started working with RLSAs. They work really well with Conversion Optimizer and other automated bidding strategies. So in most instances, when you use RLSA lists with automated bidding, it will wipe out any manual bid adjustments you've set, and it will set them on a case-by-case basis as it needs to. It's got so much more data than we could ever have. These strategies have so much more data than we could ever manually look at. So if you can let them take over your bidding, it can work really well. And RLSAs just gives them another data point to play with and to change your bids for. If you use them with enhanced CPC, it will actually add those bid adjustments on top of what you've manually set. The key thing if you are using it with automated bidding is don't put too many audiences on the same ad groups or the same campaigns. For some reason, the bidding strategy algorithms tend to get a bit confused, and sometimes it can get go a little bit wrong there. And don't forget, RLSA bid adjustments stack on top of all your other bid adjustments. So if you've got a bid adjustment for time of day or location or anything else, RLSA is going to stack on top of all those again. So be careful, because you can end up with really huge bids if you've got like 4 audiences applied to an ad group and you're adjusting bids for all of them. And as I mentioned earlier, testing your list durations is so important. So you might find an audience that works really well for you and you've applied it to your campaigns and you're seeing really good success. Make a copy of it and adjust that list duration. So see if perhaps having a longer duration or a shorter duration affects things and affects how effective it can be. To check out a good starting point for your list durations, there's the time lag report in Google Analytics, and this shows you how many days after first visiting your site somebody usually tends to make a purchase or a conversion. So in this instance, you can see quite a lot of them happen on the same day, but there's still quite a few that happen kind of 1 or 2 days later. So you might want to set your remarketing list at 3 days if this was your site's data. And for RLSAs, you need at least 1,000 people. So if you've got a low traffic page, you might not get much use out of it for RLSAs. So if it's a really niche page, not many people visit, or if it's your online conversions and perhaps you don't get many conversions online because they're all offline or they're phone calls, RLSAs might not work that well for you. But you can have up to 2,000 RLSA lists in a Google Analytics account. So just get out there and start creating these lists. Even if you don't have time to put a full strategy together and start applying it to your campaigns, just start creating the lists, see them gather the data, and then you'll be able to tell exactly which ones you should and shouldn't be using on your actual campaigns. And that's it, really. Just have a go and get started with it today.
Thank you very much.